afternoon, everybody. So today we have a special guest, Ramna Viswanathan. Ramna is currently handling the portfolio of supply chain solutions in Blue Yonder. In his over 20 years of experience in supply chain planning as well as execution, he's played various hats. He's donned many hats, such as an overall transformation architect for Fortune 500 companies. He's been a process consultant, a solution advisor across countries like China, India, Australia, and Japan. He has a wide interest in production processes and role of connected machines, and also data insights for transformation of planning and supply chain. He has an MSc Tech from BITS Pilani, and today we're going to discuss with him on the topic of designing and operating next gen supply chains with an emphasis on skills and approaches. So welcome to the Going Digital series, Ramna. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Siddharth. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here in your digital show.
Great. So let's jump right into the questions, Ramna. My first questions for you would be with respect to these next gen supply chains, right? So what factors are causing the need for a change in the existing supply chain?
If you think about it, normally a change is expected when something is not going fine. Now, if you look at the current situation, the expectations of consumers and customers, because of the evolution of various technologies, internet, and all those things over 15-20 years, has now put the consumer at the forefront of every discussion they want to have. So their experiences, such as personalized services, or their expectations of level of service, or their expectation on green, sustainability, and all these topics, has posed an evolutionary requirement for customers, not just companies who serve them, but also the ecosystem, to step back and say that, look, I need to serve them, and hence the need is for the change. So it's primarily driven by the consumer, who is the consumer, and what they feel important about today.
So the next question for you, Ramna, is that what is new and different in these next gen supply chain solutions compared to the ones that are existing in the present and the past? What's new and different?
Awesome question. See, now we first said that the customer expectation, consumer expectation, is the basis for the existing supply chains of companies, or the way they used to do business de facto before, is not okay. That's what we said. Now, what is the meaning of it? So the answer to the same to the question in terms of what is going to change lies in the same thing. So the need of the hour is supply chains which are able to comprehend the consumer's different choices, or the way they discern products and services that they are going to get. That is how companies need to set up and operate their supply chains. So earlier there was a concept of economy of scale. At a point in time, there was people who were thinking that economy of scale, meaning large volume, will give me good business profit. Now, if I am now going to service a consumer who does not care about economy of scale, but wants specialized items only for him, the way the supply chain is set up will not be the same. The company's objective of operating profitably remains the same, correct? I cannot run a loss just because I want to run. So hence, the need is to have supply chains that can now operate profitably, taking into consideration the discerning needs of the individual consumer and the requirements of the ecosystem, such as sustainability, such as green, and also make locally. All of those packaged together, the supply chain, new supply chain, needs to be able to cater all these together.
All right. So what we're saying is it's taking a whole lot of modern day factors into consideration, at the same time looking at kind of a hyper personalization at the consumer level, and that's why it becomes a whole new level of complexity of managing that supply chain. Have I got that right?
Absolutely correct.
Great. So how will this change the game for the companies that implement it? I mean, what's going to be different for companies that do something like this?
Let me flip it. The companies who are unable to capture this at this time will have a tough time going forward. The companies that are able to embrace this today and be ready to make that initiative to change, transform, will have a much longer life and much longer endurance over a longer period of time. Now, let us look at what is the change for the company itself, right? So if they don't change, it is going to be disastrous for them. Now, what is the expectation of change? Embracing first that the market situation is different. I cannot operate the way I used to operate in the past. Second thing is technology. Underpinning most of these things, if I want to say I want to cater to the diverse requirement of the individual single customer, hyper personalization, the only way to do it is using technology. You understand that if the way why digital products make more money than physical products, right? Let's take a simple example. An artist, let's say Michael Jackson, used to make like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Why? You record a song once, you make CDs, you make tapes, and then you are able to satisfy with that same recording hundreds of thousands of viewers or millions of viewers all around the world. That's the role of digital. That's the role of technology. Embracing the technology in every walk of a company's approach towards the customer will be the linchpin of that change.
So how will this benefit a company in top line, bottom line, productivity? What way will it impact the business parameters of the company?
Many of the things that they do today, which is taken for granted, is being questioned, right? Whether we talk about supply chain or other functions within the company. So let's take one very simple example. HR chatbots. Today it's become very common, or even self-help FAQs for your own employees. Now, where is this coming from? What does this mean, right? These are tiny changes of adoption of digital transformation, which is going to allow the company to focus more clearly on the customer. Whether it's an employee or a consumer, end consumer or a customer, whether it's B2B scenario or a B2C scenario, the ability to focus on an individual customer like Ramna or Siddharth will come when you start to embrace technology the right way. There is plethora of technologies, but the choice of technologies is what you choose to make the distance to the consumer shorter, to make the experience to the customer better. So all such things which are in the play in the area of, let's say, customer service, self-help bots, apps which are able to do that, and ability to understand and basically give that space to the individual customer where that hyper personalization requirement is happening. I just read somewhere, it was in an empathy LinkedIn this thing where I was reading. The lady who was talking said that in the past I could not accommodate everybody or give them a front row seat to every individual, which means their voices were not heard. Then now, because of digital, she said that when I am doing a digital program like this, I am speaking to every single audience directly, right? If you and me were doing it on a stage, maybe we will be looking at the first row or the people who are in this room, which means a person who could not attend the meeting could not have listened to our discussion. Now, today, because of the availability of technology, I'm making that person listen to the same thing. This is inclusion. Now, the same thought process can be extrapolated for all companies in terms of their trajectory to say that how are you including those whose voices you are able to clear? It's no longer voice of one customer. It's you are able to now get a lot more voices around which are diverse and the requirements are diverse. Now, once you put yourself in the position saying that, look, I am going to satisfy the requirement in a reasonable manner for all of these people, then the supply chain that you design, the supply chain then you will operate will have to be different for that.
Got it. So, since we're taking so many factors into consideration, why don't you share with us how does one approach an initiative like this? What are the stages or steps involved in these next gen supply chains?
I would like to kind of take a leaf from Jeffrey Moore's Zone to Win, right? I personally felt that it has got, even though it talks about old generation companies, how to transform, right, and all of those things. The thing which I liked about it is that is compartmentalize and go and conquer. And within each of the compartment, the zones, right? So the zones that are there, ability to operate within the zone in the most profitable manner is what he talks about. I think the transformation initiative steps should be looking at it in a similar fashion. You look at a line of business or a product portfolio and say that, okay, I need to transform this particular product portfolio to be the next generation, which is ability to address the consumer need, hyper personalization, ability to serve it at the cost that you want, being green, all of those factors. Once you do that, now you need to be able to put to all your effort in zone 1, zone 2 kind of a method to focus your energies, go through the first transformation. And it has to happen in waves. It cannot happen in one go. You cannot do the whole corporate transformation. So you need to have your cash cows where you operate in a particular manner. Then you have the fourth zone, which is coming up with the next generation or the innovation to be able to come through in the right way, right, for scaling. So initiatives similar to the zoning, within the zones, ability to give the right position for the supply chain transformation, announcing it as a transformation, not as an incremental approach, and then using it as a vehicle to go through wave of transformation. First wave, second wave, third wave, so that you are able to finally achieve the comprehensive transformation. This is how I am visualizing this next few generations to happen.
And how do you factor for all the external things that you spoke about, right? The environment, sustainability, so many new things that are coming. How does one factor that in the implementation?
See, the key, when we need to include it, the first thing starts with consciously keeping it on the table and not taking it off, right? So even though if it is not the most hot topic, keeping it on the table allows you to focus on it. Again, when time arises. Second factor is the I personally feel that these external factors, especially those such as, let's say, green initiatives, sustainability, these are driven, or these will become part of the conversation in two ways. Policy decisions, right? As a brand image, as brand conscious companies. So it starts from the top from a policy decision perspective. The second one is regulatory, right? At the lower level of execution, let us say at the logistics level, right? How to be green at your logistics, recyclable packaging or transportation cost reduction, etc. It's not because you are going to do lip service to it. It will become the foundation for your cost structure. Otherwise, your ability to service the customer base the cost will start to increase. So the two paradigms is that one is policy, another is regulation. Now the regulation will come in the form of execution level needs, because that is going to drive bottom line in the form of cost reductions.
Got it. To implement these kind of next gen supply chains, this is a raw topic, right? What kind of skills are needed to implement and operate these kind of next gen supply chains?
By the way, there is a large gap in demand versus supply when it comes to human resource supply chains, right? There is a serious gap in terms of availability of talent. Let us recognize it, right? Education or the skill set is also a supply chain, right? How do I plan to get competent managers, competent executives, competent people in my supply chain is also a supply chain. The way it gets done, right? So
That's true.
right through schools. So in my mind, the challenge is I think is much more clearer. Let us look at what kind of solutions are possible for this. and what kind of skill sets are needed.
Yeah.
At the foundational level, I believe that gone are the days when technology is not at the forefront of your CV. Today, irrespective of whether you want to be a purchase manager or a logistics manager or a production manager, you need to understand the power of technology. A production manager in a manufacturing setup cannot say, look, I don't know IoT, I don't know sensors or machines or preventive maintenance kind of things, right? He cannot say I'm oblivious to artificial intelligence or machine learning technologies. So technology, whether you are in sales or in logistics or in production or in purchasing, the role of it is going to be at the forefront. Okay. Now, is that alone sufficient to be able to manage these supply chains? No. Certain skill sets of design of supply chain, operating supply chain comes from fundamental ability to plan and execute. I think that is exactly where we are failing in our institutions, or whether it's colleges or schools or something, where the children, their ability to plan and execute, keeping it on track, I find it a bit dealer, let me call it like that, right? So if we have the ability to now tighten that, right, and pick up that kind of a skill set, let us say that I'm able to hire people with the technology background. If I'm able to inculcate within my corporation the ability to kind of mold them in planning and execution kind of domain, then I will be able to get the right kind of people for that. That's the hard part, but it's necessary.
Okay, the last question, just clicking a little further on this topic, that how can organizations which invest in these high tech next generation supply chain solutions, what steps do they specifically need to take to maybe skill up their existing people or hire new people who can handle these kind of digital supply chains? Any insight on that?
Awesome question. See, if a company is planning, any organization is planning to go through this transformation, they need to have a conscious effort to put the line managers who may be of a slightly older generation, may not have the kind of technology skill set, plus a new generation who are completely tech savvy, but do not have the experience to go through some of these transformations. Now, getting that mix right is a very, very tough challenge. In my actual experience with working with few of the companies in this area, I am seeing that those companies which invested in certain education program for their frontline managers or for their current executives mid-level on technology have been able to even a fair level of understanding. You don't need to be hands-on AI ML expert, but a good understanding of what it means to the business. How is that digital new technologies are going to impact me? I cannot be saying that, okay, I don't know cloud computing. I don't know, all this SaaS kind of thing, right? That level of inculcation is necessary. So the companies needs to take the steps to do that. Secondly, creating those pockets of opportunity for the two generations to work together, where the active dialogue is able to help group one and learn from the other, and that allows to get the right mix which will make the transformation successful. So initiatives which is helping the mid managers or senior people the foundational knowledge or getting the foundational knowledge on latest technology. Two, getting the new talent to work on real problems, real business problems, whether it's small or big. Put them along with the senior folks to kind of hone a little bit of their skills, creates these viable teams. And you know what? Those teams will, over the next few years, can do wonders for you.
Lovely, Ramna. These are some very good insights. Thank you for a very crisp and very insightful discussion on next generation supply chains. How do we approach them and how do we manage the skill gap issue that exists in this country? So thank you so much for your inputs, Ramna. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, Siddharth. Thanks a lot.